The sky over Phoenix was alive. Thousands of people stood frozen on streets, driveways, and desert roads, their eyes locked on the same impossible sight. A massive V-shaped craft, blacker than the night, gliding silently across the stars. It didn't blink. It didn't roar. It just moved, slow and smooth, like it owned the sky. Some said it stretched a mile wide. Others said it covered the stars completely, blotting out the heavens as it passed overhead. Cars stopped on the highway. Children pointed. Dogs howled. And then, in one impossible instant, the lights blinked out. The desert went silent. That night was March 13, 1997. In Glendale, a young mother named Lisa Carter stood on her porch, holding her baby. The air was cool and still, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. Her neighbor shouted from across the street, "Lisa, look up!" She did. 5 lights in a perfect V hovered above her roofline, each one bright, steady, and the color of molten gold. They moved as one, slow and deliberate, with no sound. Lisa whispered, "That's not a plane." Her husband grabbed his camcorder. The tape would later show nothing but a black sky and faint glowing dots. Shaky, distant, unbelievable. Across town, air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport leaned over their monitors. "Nothing on radar," one said, "but they're calling in reports from all over." "Maybe flares?" another offered. But the phone lines wouldn't stop ringing. Pilots, police officers, even a retired airman from Luke Air Force Base all said the same thing, a formation of lights moving silently over Phoenix. At 8:27 p.m., radar finally flickered, then vanished again. Whatever it was, it didn't want to be seen. At that same moment, in the desert town of Prescott Valley, an amateur astronomer named Jim Dorsey was setting up his telescope. He never got the chance to use it. The entire horizon lit up with strange amber orbs, 5, maybe 6, connected by a dark shape that blotted out the stars. Jim dropped his coffee, heart hammering. "I know every plane, every star, every satellite," he muttered. "That's none of them." As he reached for his phone, the lights shifted, turning slowly, silently, heading straight toward Phoenix. By now, the lights stretched across 3 cities. Cars pulled to the side of the highway. Families climbed onto rooftops. Police scanners filled with overlapping calls. 5 lights, moving slow. No sound, just drifting. "My kids are screaming. They're saying it's a ship." In North Phoenix, a truck driver named Paul James stopped his rig and stared in disbelief. He'd seen stealth bombers before, but this thing was bigger. "I could fit 10 stadiums under it," he'd later tell investigators. And the worst part? It felt like it was watching me back. At 8:40 p.m., the lights reached Phoenix City Center. Hundreds stood in parking lots and shopping centers, watching the formation drift overhead. Not a single sound came from it. No engine, no wind, just the faint electric hum of power lines. People held up camcorders, hands shaking. A police helicopter launched to investigate, but as it neared the object, its instruments flickered and failed. "Base, we're losing power," the pilot shouted. Then static. On the ground, the lights faded slowly behind the mountains, leaving the city in stunned silence. By 9 p.m., the phones at 911 dispatch were ringing non-stop. "Ma'am, please calm down," the operator repeated. "We have multiple reports already." A man on the line screamed, "It's right over my house. My lights just went out." In one neighborhood, the power flickered, then returned. But several witnesses swore their watches had stopped for exactly 2 minutes. When reporters arrived, no one could agree on the size or distance of the craft, only that it was enormous, silent, and real. That same night, at Luke Air Force Base, radar technicians scrambled for answers. Colonel Jeffrey Morgan, an operations officer, arrived furious. "What are we seeing, people?" "Sir, we're not," a young analyst replied. "There's nothing on radar." Morgan frowned. "Then why are half the state calling us?" They launched 2 F-16s, chasing coordinates reported by civilians, but the pilots found only empty sky. When they landed, one muttered quietly, "Sir, We were being followed. By midnight, the story had reached every TV station. Reporters interviewed witnesses live, mechanics, doctors, students, even a police sergeant. All described the same thing: a silent, V-shaped craft moving slower than any aircraft they'd ever seen. When the governor of Arizona finally addressed the press the next day, he smiled and brought out a man in an alien costume. "People of Arizona," he joked, "you can relax. The invasion has been canceled." The crowd laughed. But behind the scenes, the governor privately admitted to staff that he had seen the lights himself, and that they were not flares. In the days that followed, the desert stayed quiet. No wreckage, no aircraft reports, no explanation. Yet people kept replaying the moment in their heads. That impossible silence, that vast shape blotting out the stars. Lisa Carter couldn't sleep for nights afterward. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the gold lights hovering over her roof. Her baby, now asleep in the crib, would sometimes wake crying at 8:30 p.m. sharp, the same time the lights appeared. And far out in the desert, a hiker swore he saw the V-shaped pattern again, low on the horizon, moving toward the mountains. But this time, there were no witnesses left to film it. The days that followed the Phoenix Lights event felt like a blur. While the media buzzed with speculation, thousands of witnesses were left with the same chilling truth: they had seen something unexplainable. For many, the incident was an eye-opening moment. But for Lisa Carter, the mother who had seen the V-shaped craft over her house, it felt like an encounter she couldn't shake. She woke up each morning replaying the image of those glowing amber lights, the slow, deliberate way they moved, the silence, the stillness. Her baby, who had been sleeping peacefully in her arms that night, cried whenever the clock struck 8:30 p.m., the same time the lights had appeared. Lisa couldn't help but feel that something had followed them home. At the police station in Phoenix, officers who had witnessed the lights were being called in for debriefings. One officer, Detective Mark Phelps, stood in the parking lot after a long shift. He had never been a believer in UFOs, but what he had seen that night was undeniable. "I've been in this job long enough to know when something's not right," he muttered to himself. The glowing lights had been too real, too massive. No military aircraft he knew of could move like that. He had spent hours afterward reviewing video footage taken by witnesses. Each time, the same shape, the same eerie silence. His mind kept returning to one question: who were they? In the days after the sighting, there was no shortage of explanations from the authorities. Military flares, balloon experiments, interference from atmospheric conditions. But none of it fit. Jim Dorsey, the amateur astronomer who had first witnessed the lights over Prescott Valley, kept coming back to his telescope, trying to catch a glimpse of something again. Each night, the sky was as empty as it had been before. But on the third night, as he peered through the lens, he saw something move. A faint glow near the mountains. "Not again," he whispered. The UFO wasn't gone. It was just waiting. As the official narrative tried to label the event a hoax, more reports surfaced. One by one, military personnel and air traffic controllers came forward, quietly hinting at something they weren't allowed to speak about. "I was there. I saw it. It wasn't no balloon," an Air Force technician told a reporter under the condition of anonymity. The technician had been working radar that night and confirmed the V-shaped object's appearance on their screens. But it didn't just appear. It disappeared. "Poof," he said, snapping his fingers. "What do you mean, poof?" "It just vanished, like it didn't even exist anymore." The reporter was left with only more questions. That evening, as news outlets continued to fuel the confusion, a massive storm rolled into Arizona. Lisa Carter, sitting on her porch again, watched the lightning crackle across the sky. But something else caught her eye. A faint light, hovering just above the mountains. It was the same V-shaped formation. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her baby and rushed inside, locking the door. She wasn't the only one who noticed. Her neighbors also reported seeing the lights again, hovering just out of reach, taunting. The silence returned, and with it, an unsettling feeling that something was still watching. The military had insisted there were no active operations in the area that night, but the F-16 fighter jets launched again. This time, they had more than a vague lead. Pilots saw nothing. No planes, no UFOs, just empty skies. Yet on the ground, people still saw the lights. After hours of chasing empty airspace, the jets returned to base, their radar completely blank. One pilot spoke out in frustration. "I've been flying for 15 years and I've never seen anything like this. This wasn't weather or balloons. We were being watched." The military didn't respond. They just erased the footage. By the time Governor Fife Symington made his infamous appearance, the public was divided. Some were relieved, thinking it was just a joke, a light-hearted moment for a world scared of the unknown. Others weren't so sure. In the weeks after the event, the reports started circulating among Phoenix residents. They weren't just unified in their description of the lights, they were unified in their belief that the lights hadn't just been an unexplained sight. Something had happened to them that night, something beyond ordinary understanding. "Anyone else feel like we're being watched?" one witness posted on a local forum. The response? Hundreds of replies. 2 weeks after the Phoenix lights, Lisa Carter and her family packed up their things and moved out of the house. Something had changed. The fear was always there, gnawing at her, a feeling of being followed. Her baby, now 18 months old, cried every night at 8:30 p.m., the same time the lights had appeared. Lisa couldn't ignore it anymore. She had to leave. But as they drove away, she glanced back. There, high above the city, she saw it again. That unmistakable V-shaped formation of lights, now fading into the distance. But it wasn't the same. This time, the lights didn't disappear. They stayed, hovering quietly above her new home. In the years that followed, the Phoenix lights became one of the most well-documented UFO sightings in history. News stations ran special reports. Investigators from various agencies came in and out of Arizona, trying to piece together the truth. But no one ever fully explained the lights, or why they had appeared on that night. Lisa Carter kept her secret. She moved, yes, but wherever she went, the lights followed. It was as if they were attached to her, tied to something deep inside her. She began to keep a journal, noting every odd occurrence, the flickering lights, the unexplainable noises, and most importantly, the strange dreams. One evening, while driving through the mountains years later, Jim Dorsey finally captured something on camera. It was another V-shaped light, this time only half the size of what he had seen years ago. But there was something different. The light seemed to be calling to him, pulling him toward it. As Jim reached for his camera to record, his phone began to ring. He picked it up. "Jim, it's happening again," the voice on the other end whispered. Then the line went dead. The light blinked out, and Jim was left alone in the night, staring at a silent sky.